Hello, I'm Kyle, and I just saw Matt Reeves' The Batman. I saw it first at an IMAX fan screening, and then I went to see it again on opening night last night. But so far, I want to give off my thoughts because I've seen it 2 times, and I think that this is one of the best comic book films ever made. And I'll go into why. First off, the Batman is one of the most truest to form adaptations of a graphic novel and the workings of said graphic novel, because it is based off of a couple of graphic novels. One of them is The Long Halloween, another one is Year One, and it goes into others. I would even go so far as to say it all stems from the work that Bob Kane and Bill Finger did when they created Batman and Detective Comics back in 1939. So it is just a love letter to all types of comics in the Batman lore. But the thing that really makes this Batman movie special is, unlike all the other Batman films, like Tim Burton's Batman, or Joel Schumacher's Batman Forever, or Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins, this film manages to focus on how a graphic novel works. And many graphic novels are different. There are different ways. But one of the most, I would say, frequent uses of story in a graphic novel is the use of voiceover and narration. In The Long Halloween, this is very key into the story, especially the way that The Long Halloween focuses on dates. So when Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale worked on The Long Halloween is based off of this comic run of a holiday killer. And every single, I would say, issue is a different month or a different holiday. So every issue, is essentially a different day. And that is given a tagline in the comic, which is October 31st or something like that. Well, that is one of the opening scenes of the Batman. You hear the voiceover, and this is something that we've never heard in a Batman movie before. We've never heard a voiceover from Batman. I think that this was a genius decision by Matt Reeves because it just gives the Batman character even more complexity, I would say, because by giving this character a voiceover, we now know what the inner workings of their mind is like. And sometimes that could come across as a lazy or cheap way of telling a story. But all stems from a graphic novel. And I think that just when I heard this in the theater, I was not expecting a voiceover. And when I heard this, I was just immediately immersed into the film. I immediately felt like I was finally reading a graphic novel brought to the screen. And it just felt so unique. And it also gives Robert Pattinson, who we will get to in a second, I think a lot more to do in terms of what he can say to the audience and what he can show the audience. The way that it is structured, it reminded me of Watchmen, and in the graphic novel, it is all Rorschach's journal and how he is able to express his views of the city and the world of Watchmen to the audience. When Zack Snyder directed the Watchmen film, he also translated this into the movie. the thing about the Batman, by him basically explaining to you how he preys upon the city and how he is, in his quotations, the shadows. This is a key element to understanding how Batman operates and how he views this city and how the city essentially views him. Because knowing that Batman is narrating the film, we get to see at the same time, juxtaposed with the citizens of Gotham and even the thugs of Gotham just running around, you can feel this disconnection between Batman and, or at least I should say Bruce Wayne, and the people of Gotham. Bruce Wayne is this rich playboy. The people of Gotham are broke. At least a number of people of Gotham are broke, and they are poor, and they are trying to live on pennies and dimes, and you have orphans running amongst everybody. But Bruce Wayne has the fortune. He's fortunate enough to actually be an orphan that is now just completely wealthy, and in a way, way more gifted than many other citizens of Gotham. But he uses this as a way to save and protect other citizens of Gotham. Now, I think another element of this story that I found very investing is that the Batman in this movie is not a Batman that is what you would call the Cape Crusader. He isn't someone that is trying to save the city, as opposed to someone that is just trying to rid the city of crime. And he's out for vengeance. And this is something that the Dark Knight trilogy, specifically Batman Begins, touched upon, where he was going in to interrogate the mob and get all these mob bosses put away and all this stuff that you see near like the beginnings of his Batman moments in Batman Begins. But here, this is a 3-hour film, which runs pretty well. At first screening, I was like, is it too long? I really feel how long it is. This scene might be a bit longer than it needs to be. But then when I watched it for a second time, I think that the length of the film really works. And I think that you can watch the movie, and I think it is the perfect length it needed to be. But with that being said, with it being 3 hours long, you have Batman partaking in his vengeance the entire film. And this movie is a story of Batman learning where he goes from vengeance, because only vengeance can take you so far. And you will be at a crossroads if you just dedicate your life to that. And I really love the way that Robert Pattinson played this character. Because, see, Robert Pattinson, he doesn't play Batman like any of the other actors have played Batman before. Michael Keaton had this, and it was also, I assume, part of Tim Burton's own mandates or his own suggestions, but Michael Keaton played Batman as almost like a creature of the night, where he was very much seen as this other entity in Gotham City and a myth and a legend. And then he would come out and he would be in his Batcave sleeping upside down and hanging upside down and doing things that some bats would do. And he was scary when he was Batman, but you could see that he was also human when he took the suit off. With Christian Bale, who is my favorite Batman, Christian Bale perfectly captured the the nuances between Bruce Wayne and Batman. And I think that you could feel at times he used his Batman as a way of being like a demon-esque character, a thing that people should fear. He needed to instill fear upon his enemies. Robert Pattinson kind of portrays Batman like an alien, like someone that is a social recluse, someone that doesn't quite understand how to fit in with society. You gotta understand, Bruce Wayne's parents, when they were killed, aside from maybe Alfred, that is a whole chunk of his life that he really wasn't surrounded by a lot of people to give him, tips on how to be, kind of stately and professional. When his parents died, he became filled with so much grief, he just kind of separated himself from the world. And this is a Batman that is separated from the world. He wants to be more Bruce Wayne. I mean, he doesn't want to be Bruce Wayne, but he wants to be more Batman than Bruce Wayne. He doesn't want to be stuck being this playboy rich philanthropist and sacrificing his mission of vengeance. Because in the film, he specifically states how he feels that his job as Batman is to fulfill his father's and his parents' legacy. And I think that you really get a sense that he doesn't know how to interact with others. He doesn't know how to play with others. And he's silent all the time, which is a key element of Batman. It's a really great decision to not have Batman speak as much when he is in the suit. And I think Robert Pattinson, even when he has only a few scenes in this film as Bruce Wayne surrounded by other people in Gotham, he is still Batman through and through, and you can tell that Bruce Wayne is the mask. And not only that, but you can also tell that when he is outside of the suit, it's almost like he feels naked and he feels just completely exposed to this society. And I love that because we get to see a Bruce Wayne that really doesn't feel at home with himself, with his own identity. And I really, really think that is one of the best parts of this movie. And Robert Pattinson, when he's in the suit, he is intimidating, he is agile, he is very believable, and he just has this presence with his eyes and with his mouth that you feel something else is either wrong with this guy or he is someone that you do not want to mess with. And I remember I was watching it the first time. I'm like, you know what's cool about this Batman? This is a Batman that I would be, I would really want to protect me, if that makes any sense. Like, I would feel safe around this Batman. Like, if I was in a room and, I don't know, like a whole bunch of gang bosses are there, if Robert Pattinson Batman was in that room, I would feel safe. There are some Batman, like George Clooney's Batman, where, I don't know if I would feel as safe with them. But with Robert Pattinson, he really has this commanding presence and this sense of, I am Batman, and you don't mess with me. But what I also like, too, about this is that he is also only in his year 2 of being Batman. And you can see how the criminal underworld sees him. They know who he is, but they are still not afraid of him. Because in one particular scene, it isn't until he beats some characters up that they're like, okay, I should fear you. I can only imagine if this series goes to I don't know, a year 5 or even year 10, or if they go even to the Dark Knight Returns Batman that's in his 60s, I can only imagine how afraid Gotham will be at that point, because this Batman is very, very new to the crime scene and the entire world of Gotham. So that is, I think, one of my favorite parts about this Batman. The rest of the cast. Zoe Kravitz is great as Catwoman. Colin Farrell is amazing as Penguin. I love how he calls himself Oz. And this is by far, I would say, the best Penguin we have gotten. Because I really love Danny DeVito Penguin. But I think that there is a lot of interesting things that Colin Farrell also does with the character. And he really grounds Penguin. Every character in this film is grounded. The Riddler's grounded. Batman is more grounded than he's ever been. But for me, the best performance of this movie, next to Robert Pattinson, of course, but the best performance is John Turturro as Carmine Falcone, who is one of the main mob bosses of Gotham City. And one wouldn't know that John Turturro is in this film based on the trailers, based on the cast. Like, he doesn't really have his name showing up many places. But I remember when I first heard about John Turturro as Penguin, he was John Turturro as Falcone. He was very, very well casted, because this is a man that has been in comedies, but at the same time he can play that sleazy and at times scary kingpin of crime in a way, and I really, really loved his performance. On to the score. The score of this movie is phenomenal. It's done by Michael Giacchino, who's worked with Matt Reeves on many other projects. One of my favorite scores of his is his work on War for the Planet of the Apes. But here, he manages to create a whole new Batman score that doesn't sound like a Michael Giacchino score. At least, it doesn't sound like one I expected, because he's very much into orchestral scores. He's like the new John Williams, essentially. That's who Michael Giacchino is. But I love how this Batman score, he goes into all different types of film scores in the history of film scores. There is the film noir, even I would go so far as to say, like, John Barry-esque James Bond theme for Catwoman. There's almost a Danny Elfman-esque theme for the Riddler, and he manages to incorporate themes based on other music. So the Batman score, which is the dun 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 dun, the one that you've been hearing in the trailers, that score is, I think, I'm not too sure, but I'm pretty sure that it is based off of Nirvana's Something in the Way. And the thing with that song, Something in the Way, it plays in the film, and it becomes Batman's almost mantra, his song that he kind of, you don't see him listening to it, like, it's not like a diegetic song that he's listening to in the film. It plays over it, but it's more of like his song that you kind of think of, that's how he thinks, that's his theme, but then Michael Giacchino basically makes it into the score. So it's like, something in the way, dun 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 dun, something in the way. So it kind of like has that element. And the Riddler's score is based on Schubert's Ave Maria, and that one really has a key element to his character to it. So I love how Michael Giacchino did a bit of a different thing by actually taking songs, real songs, and making them into the scores for these characters. On to Matt Reeves' direction. Matt Reeves' direction is impeccable in this film. It is one of the best parts of the movie. He commands the camera, the way that he operates. I love all of Matt Reeves' movies, and I even love his television series Felicity. But the thing with Matt Reeves is that one of his best strengths as a director is the way he works on his characters. Every character is given enough to do here. They are given their role. They're given their performance. That all their performances are great. Though I will say one of my criticisms is Andy Serkis's Alfred. Andy Serkis is great, but I kind of wish we got a little more of Alfred. But even the way that he's utilized is very, very well. What else should I talk about? I love that this is now a Batman film that is different, but still Batman. Because you could have easily made this movie something that it wasn't, and you could have easily done its own take. But this is so much Batman. Everything about this movie is screaming from the work that Bob Kane, Bill Finger did, Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale did on Long Halloween, Frank Miller did on Year One. It's this love letter to all the comics, and I think that anyone that sees this, if they love the character of Batman, they need to see this movie. You who are watching, if you love Batman, go out and watch this film. Because it is a very dark film. It's not like the Adam West TV series. And it is a very violent film in terms of what happens to some characters. But it just is so well directed, so well written. And a couple of standout scenes. There's a Batmobile chase sequence. Outstanding. Exhilarating. And there's also some amazing uses of Batman's tech. And this is something that if I do a spoiler review, I will get into. But all I'll say is that I love how he uses his tech in this movie. It somewhat makes sense that he could use it, and it also is really, really cool. My favorite Batman movies are also my favorite films, which are the Dark Knight trilogy, Batman Begins, Dark Knight, and Dark Knight Rises. This film isn't better than those films. I still think those films are better, and I think that one of the reasons why those films are better is that they just, especially Batman Begins, I think that those movies are just so well told in their narratives, and I love every character. You know what? They are both good. I think we as a society need to get away from this movie is better than this movie is better than that movie. Let's just enjoy these movies, because that's what they are. They are all great Batman films. And I applaud Matt Reeves, I applaud Robert Pattinson, the cast, the crew, for what they accomplished with this film. Greg Fraser for his cinematography. It's gorgeous. But go out and see the Batman, and you will not be disappointed. Okay, talk to you later. Bye.